This call is now being recorded.
Okay, in the last class we have seen what are the main types of control charts. So there are basically two types of control charts. That is, first one variable control chart and next is the attribute control chart. So what is the basic difference between them? One is regarding the variables. That is, it includes mainly the variables or the measurements can be done on the basis of some variable, like if the size, in the case of a size of a shaft, like the diameter of the shaft, it may be 50 mm, 60 mm, 40 mm, like that. There are possible values of or a range of values for them. But for attributes, it is either yes or no, like that. Whether it is a having a discrete value, that is on, off, or what is a, there is any color or not, like that. So based on that, we can say for variable control charts we use R chart, sigma chart, X chart and all. And for attribute charts we have using P chart and C chart. Now we will see what are the detailed procedure in preparing the chart, or how to develop a control chart. So developing the control chart is a 5-step procedure. So we will see one by one. First of all, preparation. The first step is preparation. That means preparing the chart, or the initial stage. So in preparation, first of all, choose the variable or attribute. So first of all, we have to choose which all variables have to be collected, or the data, based on the data to be collected, which are the variables or what are the attributes. After choosing the variable, then determine the basis, size and frequency of sampling. So on what basis we are selecting the sample, or how we take the sample, that basis. Then size of the sample, how much amount of sample is to be taken, and also frequency of sampling, at which frequency we have to select the sample, or from where the sample to be taken. So these things have to be determined. Then using these data, you have to set up the control chart. So these are included in the initial stage. So the initial stage is preparation, where we choose the variable or attribute, then determine the basis, size and frequency of sampling. Later we set up the control chart. Now the next level, or the second step, is data collection. So now we set a control chart in the initial stage, then we have to collect the data. So collecting the data, first of all, record the data. So record the procedures, whatever things are there, we have to record the relevant data. Then calculate the relevant statistics, average, proportion and so on. So based on the available data, we have to calculate the relevant statistics. So what are the statistic related items, that is mean, average, etc., proportions and all. So we have to make the calculations and plot these calculations on the chart. That is how it is varying, or where is the mean position, what is the variance, like that, standard deviation and all. Using that, we plot the statistics on the chart, available chart. Next, we go for the determination of trial control limits. So, in order to find the tolerance and all, there should be the control limits, upper control limit and lower control limits. So, for that, first of all, we draw a central line on the chart. So, a central line is to be considered where it is the mean position or the mean value of the which all data we got. So that is to be given in the given by a central line on the chart. Then after that, we have to compute the upper limit and lower limit based on the customer requirement. So based on that, we will set the upper and lower control limits. The next is the analysis and interpretation. So first of all, we have set the control chart, data is collected, then we go for the determination of the trial control limits. After that, we are going to analyze or analysis and interpretation. So here, investigate the client for lack of control, eliminate out of control points, and recompute control limits if necessary. That means here, first of all, we will go for the investigation for lack of control, where the control is lost or in which case the control will be lost. Likewise, a detailed investigation will be done or the detailed analysis will be done on the process. Then based on that, we will try to eliminate the out of control points wherever the upper control limits or the lower control limits is exceeded or the process goes beyond the limits. We try to eliminate. And if we see that is a general trend that it is always going beyond the control limit, or upon the study, detailed analysis, we found that if we can adjust the control limits a little bit, it will be no issue. There will be no issue. Or in case if the control limits are so adjusted that most of the product will be accepted. So in that case, we can recompute the control limits. So these are all done in this step, that is analysis and interpretation. And finally, use as a problem solving tool. Identify the out of control situations and take the corrective actions. So these are the 5-step procedures to develop a control chart. So first of all, preparation. Then we go for the data collection, determination of the trial control limits, analysis and interpretation, and finally use as a problem solving tool. So this is the comparison of the variable chart and attribute chart. So we have seen the process control charts are of two types, variable chart and attribute chart. So first of all, cost of collecting data for the variable chart is more. So regarding the cost for variable chart, the data collection will be costly compared to attribute chart. Then what is the purpose of the variable chart? That is given. That is it is suited for the critical dimensions. The critical dimensions, whether it is 5 mm, 6 mm, 30 mm, or like that, there are some critical dimensions. And for attribute chart, it is suited for the cases where inspection is carried out with a view of classifying as accepted or rejected. That is, based on some condition, we say if it is accepted or rejected. Like that, we consider the situation. In that scenario, we use the attribute chart. That is, suppose if the product is we are measuring some parameters, that is using some gauges and all. So if it goes into that, no go gauge and no go gauge, in the case of that, if it goes into that, it can be accepted, and if it is not gone inside, then we can reject it. Likewise, there are yes or no type of cases were there. Then in that case, we can say if it is accepted or rejected. Then for the regarding the sample size, for variable chart, it is less compared to attribute chart. Now, in variable chart, it provides the maximum utilization of the information. So the which all informations are or the data is being collected, it makes the maximum utilization. So in attribute chart, the information required is already available from the inspection records. So from the inspection record, the information is already available. So we don't need to have an additional information from the data collected. Next, not easily understood. That is for the variable chart, and for attribute chart, it will be easy to understand, and the examples. So these are the main difference between the variable chart and attribute chart. So one more topic, that is acceptance sampling. So acceptance sampling, we have already mentioned this topic, that is acceptance sampling. Whether a part is accepted or rejected, how we can say? By sampling technique. So using sampling technique, whether we can accept a product or not is being done by acceptance sampling through many plans, like single sampling plan, double sampling plan, multiple sampling plan, sequential plan, and anything. So that is beyond our topic. Anyway, there are certain sampling plans. Based on that, we accept or reject a material. So the acceptance sampling, this uses a statistical sampling to determine whether to accept or reject a production lot of material. So here, this is a sampling technique, or it uses the statistical sampling. That means using statistics, using the theory of statistics, we do the sampling to determine whether we have to accept or reject a lot. That is coming under the acceptance sampling. Now this works on the certain sampling plans. So what is a sampling plan? So sampling plan is a plan for acceptance sampling that precisely specifies the parameter of the sampling process and the acceptance rejection criteria. So the sampling plan means it is a plan, usual plan of how to sample, or how we are taking the sample in order to accept or reject based on a criteria, already set standard criteria, how we can take the sample that is given in the sample plan. So the variables mainly used in the sampling plan are the, first of all, size of the lot. Based on the size of the lot, we are arriving at the sample size, or yeah, we will see how much is to be taken. Then the size of the sample inspected from the lot, that is the sample size, small n. Then number of defects above which a lot is rejected or acceptance. That is, we will set a point like C, small c, that is the acceptance number. So if the sample we have taken from the load, say suppose we have a lot of total lot size capital N of 1000, and from there we have chosen the sample size as 10. That means we are taking 10 in a sample, and there is a criteria, that is, if the sample contains two or more defective products, then we have to reject it. Up to one, it is permissible. Then the acceptance number is 1. So there is a number of defects above which a slot is rejected, or acceptance number, that is C. And finally, the number of samples. So these are the main variables. That is a one, size of the lot, then size of the sample, then number of defects, and finally number of samples. How much times we have to take the sample. So these are the regarding the acceptance sampling. Now we will see another topic, that is reliability. So what is a reliability? Reliability actually contains 4 elements. That is probability, intended function, time, and operating condition. That means, so this is the main definition. You can see the reliability. That is, it is a probability that a unit performs its intended function adequately for a given period of time under the stated operating condition of or environment. That means, suppose so we'll start with an example. That is, suppose you have got a product like a car. You have a car, and suppose this particular car, it should work properly for 10 years under a particular condition. That is a while moving on a what do you say, highway. Suppose you are using the car for just for the highway under good operating condition, it should work properly for 10 years. Then we can say, what is the probability that it will function? That is, function means its intended function is just we have to drive it, or it should go. It should be able to, or we should be able to drive the car properly. We should reach the proper place at the time. So the intended function is mainly for the car. Intended function is to drive, or for transportation. That is the intended function. It has many other functions also. We can hear the music, we can switch on the AC and all. Anyway, but the main intended function is to have the transportation. So the intended function should be there. And regarding the period of time means the 10 years we have set it. So that for the 10 years, if it is functioning under the operating condition means which are the conditions, that is the road. In the case of highway we are using. So in these conditions, that is the operating condition under the stated operating condition, for the intended function, and for the time period, what is the probability? Probability means, probability always lies between 0 and 1. So if it is 0 means always it will be failure. That is 100% it will be fail. And if it is 1 means 100% it will work, or it will work properly. So reliability is basically a probability that any product that will perform its intended function, which all is its intended function or what is the intended function it will perform for the given period of time under the given operating conditions. So this is the regarding the reliability. Now we will see what are the importance of reliability. So importance of reliability. First of all, reputation. So we have seen what is the reliability. Reliability means mainly it is a probability that it will maintain the function or intended function over the given time for the given conditions. So first of all, what is the importance? First importance is the reputation. So for any company, the company is having a good reputation if and only if its products are better or it is more reliable. Suppose a product is not reliable, that means it is not functioning for a given time, then the customer will have a tendency to lose their interest in the particular company, and ultimately what happens is the reputation of the company will go down. So in order to have a good reputation to any company, then we should maintain a good reliability. So that is the first importance, that is regarding the reputation. So the reputation of any firm will be increasing with the with respect to the reliability or proportional to the reliability. Next, customer satisfaction. The same thing. That is, customer will be satisfied if he get a more reliable product. So whenever the product, which all product we the customer receive, if it is a failure or what do you say? If any broken products or any defective products, if the customer is receiving, that means it will have a negative impact, and it will lose the satisfaction of the customers. So here also the having the reliability is of key importance. Next is the warranty cost. So what is the warranty cost? Warranty means for anything, usually people go for the warranty or the product which is offering more warranty, 1+1 warranty, 1+2 warranty, 3-year warranty, and all we have seen. So people always prefer to have the product with good warranty. So in that case, if any product fails within the the warranty period, then the product is to be replaced, or it should be, or it should undergo the repairing. So there will be some cost associated with the replacement or the repair. So this will give a negative effect on the profit. So which all profit we are gaining while selling a product, if this types of events will happen, then there will be a negative effect on the profit. So this is the other thing, that is the importance of reliability. So if it is reliable, then this can be avoided. Next, repeat business. So repeat business means if a product is more reliable, then ultimately the first things, reputation, customer satisfaction, warranty cost, like that. So there will be more customer satisfaction. So the customers will be more satisfied, and due to which the business will be repeated. That means the people will or the customer will have a tendency to give the order again to the same firm or the same company. Or if in the other way, if it is not reliable means, then he may switch over to other alternative or other companies for the same product. So it then they will lose their business. So this is the another thing, there is a repeat business. Then coming to the cost analysis. Cost analysis means nothing but usually the manufacturers, which all manufacturers are there, they will make the reliability data. These which all reliability data are available, they will combine it with the other cost informations. So by combining only, they will analyze whether a product is having a profit or not. That means just merely seeing the initial cost or operating cost, sometimes we'll feel that compared to the other products in the market, our product is not a profit, it is a loss. But while we try to incorporate the data of the reliability, that is, even if there is a cost, even if the cost of production is high, or the production cost or any other cost is high, but the product is but our product is reliable, then we can avoid some other cost, that is repair cost, warranty cost, replacement cost and all. So based on the reliability study or the data from the reliability, we can say ultimately the cost will be less compared to the other alternatives. So such a cost analysis can be done based on the reliability data. That is the cost analysis. Then regarding the customer requirement, so in the present scenario, many of the customers in our market demand that their suppliers will have a effective reliability program. So these customers will learn the benefits of the reliability analysis from their experience or the knowledge and all. So these are the customer requirements. Then regarding the competitive advantage, that means we know for a single product, for any product, we have many alternatives in the market. For example, for toothpaste or umbrella, anything, toothpaste ആണെങ്കിൽ എന്താണ്, we have many alternatives like Colgate, Pepsodent, KP Nambudiri, anything. So and everyone is offering the product with ഏകദേശം എന്താണ് ഒരു സെയിം റേഞ്ചിൽ തന്നെ ആയിരിക്കും അല്ലേ, almost same range they are giving. So the product which is more reliable or acceptable will remain in the market and other will be losing. So there is a competition. So in that particular case, in the case of the competition, if the product is having more reliable or the product with more reliability will have the advantage of winning the competition, so that they can survive in the market. So that is a competitive advantage. So these are the main importance of the reliability. Now we'll move to the methods of how we can improve the reliability so that we can achieve these things. There is a method of improving the reliability or methods to improve the reliability of a system. So these are the main techniques or methods to improve the reliability. First of all, parts improvement method. Parts improvement method means, suppose we feel that a particular product is not reliable. So in order to improve the reliability, we have to improve the reliability. So how we can improve the reliability? Either you can improve the parts, improve every component, or fully you can improve it, or some of the parts or the critical components in the products. In any product we can see there are certain products, or sorry, certain elements or certain components of the product which is vulnerable to the failure. So these critical components can be replaced or improved, or you can improve the whole component. So that is a part improvement method, that the parts can be improved. Next is effective and creative design approach. Effective and creative design approach, where it is a derating. Derating means, suppose this is nothing but derating. The term derating is mainly used in the this electrical and electronic devices. That is, for electric device, anything like a generator or motor, anything, there is a rating. That is standard rating given. That is how much volt, this particular volt or this particular watt, it should work in this particular value. That is, say, 2000 volt. So if it is rated like that, suppose a generator is rated for a designed voltage or a particular value, and we are using in that particular value, then it is using the maximum power. So there is a chance of failure. But if what we can do is, the generator who has a capacity, or in a case, for example, we can say, suppose in our mechanical case, we can say there is a material. Suppose we have to use a material for 7000 kilogram per centimeter square tensile strength. Our need is 7000 kilogram per centimeter square. So in that case, we are using a material having a tensile strength more than that. That is a 10,000 kilogram per centimeter square. So our need is 7,000 only, but we are using the product or the material with 10,000 kilogram per centimeter square. As a factor of safety, we are using that. Then it will, we can say for sure that it will work. Or in that case, we will improve the reliability. Next is the choice of technology. Choice of technology. That is, we have many technologies or alternative technologies for the same purpose. For example, a tachometer. In the case of a tachometer, you can use mechanical tachometer, or you can use electronic tachometer in order to find the rotational speed and all. So in the case of reliability, we can say mechanical tachometer is more reliable than the electrical or electronic tachometer. So we'll go for mechanical tachometer. So in that case, likewise, we can make the choice of the technologies. Next is a system simplification. So usually many systems are complex in structure. So whenever the complexity increases, the chance of failure also increases. So we always try to simplify the structure, or if the complexity is reduced, then we can improve the reliability. Next, redundancy. Redundancy means we are providing a standby or parallel components in the system. That means, for example, Suppose we have to give the electric supply. So we have the option from the KSEB power supply, but as a standby, we are also providing the backup power source using some generators. So this may help in the case of any power failure from the KSEB, then we can make use of the generator. So by likewise, we can provide the or increase the productiveness or increase the reliability. That is regarding the redundancy. Next, quality control program. So we have already seen various quality control programs done by the safety quality policies, quality control staffs and all. So using these quality control programs, good quality control programs, inspection and acceptance sampling procedures, these can help in the increasing the reliability of any production. And finally, the preventive maintenance policy. Preventive maintenance policy. Maintenance are of many types. One among them is the preventive maintenance. So preventive maintenance is nothing but before going to failure, we will try to prevent it. So by preventing the maintenance done in a preventive manner. So there are certain policies associated with that. So using the preventive maintenance policies also, we can improve the reliability. So these are the measures to improve the reliability, or methods or techniques to improve the reliability. So these are the things in today's class.